On the show this week, we have Ashish Kapur from Yo China.
At the end of the day, if your brand is really strong in terms of great food, consistent, and has the aspiration level, it'll pull in people.
In news, Rory McIlroy wins Deutsche Bank Championship. Richie Ramsey wins European Masters. And golfing tip with Jesse Grewal.
Bend more from the upper body to get the head face down to the target, to the ball.
I have a special guest today on Tea Time with me, Shaili Chopra. Ashish Kapur, thank you very much for joining us. The food and beverage industry is one so expanding so rapidly that it makes me actually bring a large number of foodpreneurs on my show to talk about how they're cashing into this dividend. How is it going for you?
I think it's a glorious industry. It's great, Shaili, because just the canvas and the opportunity is so large. Like I tell people, 350 million middle class, 3 meals a day. If you're Punjabi like me, 5 meals a day, 1 billion meals a day, and India's eating out.
India's eating out, and Yo China is trying to cash into that. It's a space where in India today you have a spectrum of fine dining versus quick service restaurants. But I noticed that over the last few years, especially during an economic slowdown, the quick service industry has suddenly picked up speed. Are you sensing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Casual dining is, in a way, a little recession-proof. And I think most importantly, it really addresses the aspiration quotient, which the youth of India, 60% is below 30. And casual dining restaurants like Yo China really bring out that aspiration and make it available in terms of the ambience, in terms of the menus, get in dim sum, get in really cuisine that people are familiar with, but still there's some innovation to the cuisine. And bring that in.
But food, while it does appear to the outsider as something that can be done easily, knowing Indian palate, fairly flexible, this, that and the other, the problem lies in actually getting the entire formula right. Whether it's the size of your restaurant, the kind of quality and food that you're putting out, the speed at which you're putting out, and matching the costs.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we started, we got 4 parts to the pillars right. One was really value Chinese.
Yeah.
The second one was great quality. Affordability was critical, but quality is really important because the Indian palate is very sensitive on good taste, and especially Chinese food. The third thing was trendy. So, at that time, there was really no casual dining Chinese space. There were either hawkers or fine dining spaces.
And what is this time? We're talking about 2000?
This is 2003. 2003 was the first store. And the last one was really speedy, all-day dining. So we really brought in these elements, plus hygiene and innovation to the menu. And it really worked with the youth. And today we have grown into a chain that we are proud of running.
So how big is the chain today?
50 stores across 14 cities.
14 cities.
That's right.
And are these cities largely the metros, or have you gone beyond?
No, we are in Jammu, we are in Patna, we are in Jaipur, Chandigarh, apart from Delhi NCR where there's a large cluster. But we've seen great growth out of these smaller cities also.
When you say great growth, tell me what great growth is. I mean, compared to, let's say, a metro.
Sure, I'll give you an example. We were one of the first organized restaurant players to open in Patna.
Right.
And we have 3 stores today in Patna. And we are looking at opening in Jamshedpur, and we have one in Guwahati. So, the expansion is led because of consumption in these places.
And lower costs.
But I think more than lower cost, frankly, is the aspiration. And people do want to go out and eat great food and, bring in hygiene and an organized environment.
So really speaking, it's India's mid-tier, 2-tier cities today that are offering a big opportunity as a slowdown tends to impact some of the larger cities in a more in-your-face way.
From a profitability standpoint, true, but from a consumption standpoint, I think for food at least, and in the casual dining space, even the metros have huge consumption growths, and we've been witnessing that.
Is it a myth that when there is a slowdown, which actually has a great deal of perception involved, more sort of a sentiment involved, that people stop their discretionary spending? Does that happen on food as well? I know it happens on luxury items, but does it happen on food?
I'll give you 2 examples. One is in the casual dine space for us at Yo China. So we've seen same-store sales and consumption and tickets grow. But in the fine dine sector, where people are a little more sensitive to this, we opened a brand called Dim Sum Brothers recently. And we said we want to play the fine dine Chinese market a little differently. And the foray is really 60 varieties of dim sum, chefs from Hong Kong. And really in that region also, we've not seen any slowdown. So we've in fact grown into a second store from the first store within a year. I think it's about, playing it differently.
Playing it differently. Well, we'll go and try that on the golf course as we tee off on a par 3 at the Delhi Golf Club.
Whew.
Nice. So Ashish, we were talking about, fast dining formats, and therein I was asking you about competition. Now, a lot of the differentiation comes in from how well you can manage your costs. How is YoChina trying to do that?
I think one of our biggest learnings was especially during growth phases, clustering and growing through the same cluster is critical, because that's when bandwidth gets shared. Employee bandwidth, marketing bandwidth, supply chain bandwidth. So really that's the key, and for sure getting the location science right.
So what do you mean by clustering? Would you say that, like, say, in a corner of Delhi, you would have 5 not too far from each other?
Yeah, so there's 2 parts to clustering. I think the first part is really to understand who's the consumer that comes to YoChina, and then to understand and map where he stays, and within where he stays, what's the best real estate option. But then also to look at Delhi NCR, and that's a massive opportunity as a whole, and just completely fill that opportunity. Or if you're in 14 cities, not open a 15th and a 16th, but carry on opening within those cities.
Okay.
And that's the plan.
What is the kind of investment you might have already put into the company so far?
About 45 crores have already been put in, and that's the brand, that's the company, and then there's also franchisees.
Yeah.
Because we've got a very successful franchisee program running. Most franchisees run 2 or 3 stores of the brand, so that would be a comparable amount.
So when you look at the total we're talking includes the franchisees, that's about 50 odd stores?
Yes.
And so let's say how many would be company owned and how many franchise?
It's a 50-50 split.
50-50
That's
split,
right.
So when you are looking, these days people are obsessed with the malls. Yes. Do you think that's a good strategy to have, let's say, a YoChina or a YoChina Express? I don't know if it exists, but if you
Sure.
want one,
Yeah.
then is a mall strategy sensible?
Shaili, like I said, I think it's critical to really see what the best real estate option is if you understand who's the consumer that visits. So if it's a high street, then be it high streets. But malls definitely make it easier. A good mall makes it easier to grow because infrastructure is taken care of, and there are other factors pulling in the crowd. But at the end of the day, if your brand is really, really strong in terms of great food, consistent, and has the aspiration level, it'll pull in people.
It will pull in people. Supply chain, how worrying is that factor?
I think it is worrying. So we don't have a standard supplier of tomatoes or onions. So if you don't have standard ingredients, you can imagine what a nightmare it would be to create end products. And especially like us, companies that don't have really large cash banks to build our own supply chain, we have to really piggyback off the country. But I think it's getting better. So it's getting better by the year, and consistency will always be a challenge, but that's something that we got to work towards.
Indeed so. Well, I can tell you, if business is getting better, this temperature is so not. We're like dying in this sultry weather here in Delhi today. But we'll catch you ahead on the fairway.
Fine dining and casual dining in the same bouquet for a company gives you the added advantage of not letting go of great real estate where one particular format might not fit in.